both sides of the conversation, family. We welcome you to this virtual space crafted especially for you. My name is Jada Curry, and I'm both sides of the conversation's marketing director and graphics design specialist. I want to take some time to ground us all as a community into this space we are about to open up in, so let's go through our community standards. Both sides of the conversation is providing a safe and honest space for open conversation, so we ask that you all be respectful of that. We also ask that you be respectful of each panelist, host, and participant. We do encourage healthy debates and conversations. Don't personalize anything with anyone. This includes name-calling, bullying, trolling, or shaming. This will not be allowed or tolerated. Your perspective is yours. It is not a prescription. You do not have to agree, but show respect. These community standards apply to all of our live shows and any virtual spaces that we hold on social media, including YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We want to make sure that we are caring for each other as a community. This is our priority in all of our endeavors as both sides of the conversation. With that being said, I hope you enjoyed today's show and continue to stay in touch with us via YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, or all of them. All right, thank you for listening and see you soon.
Welcome, everybody, to both sides of the conversation. I'm John Henry, Executive Director. Today is Tuesday, so y'all know what that means. Another Hidden Gem segment where we will continue to highlight our Black and Brown businesses as well as those community leaders that are doing positive things to impact our community. So just excited for tonight. We have some phenomenal hidden gems that's coming on tonight. So just looking forward to getting tonight's segment started. With that being said, we have a couple of community announcements and some things that we want to touch on for community. And then we'll jump into tonight's conversation. And we got our guy, my brother, SF Rebels. We got Big Nate back with us tonight. So I'm just pumped up about that. Good to see them back safely and all of that. But with that being said, first community, just want to say, hey, there has been an increase of drug overdose in our community. That's why tonight's guest is very, very important. As you all know, here at both sides of the conversation, we always are advocating for mental health and ways that our community can get out and just relieve some of the thoughts and some of the things that they are dealing with. Right now, we are in some of the most challenging times here in this country, but just here in the Bay Area as well. So many people are dealing with, jobless issues, homeless issues, grief from loss of family members and loved ones from COVID. And people are just running out of ways to help heal and just deal with some of their emotions. And unfortunately, sometimes these people are turning to drugs. And unfortunately, in our city, especially in San Francisco, there's been an increase of fentanyl deaths. And, just want to, again, tell community, keep your eyes on your loved ones, show some love, be a listening ear for people. As people are dealing with a lot, there's a lot of emotions, a lot of things happening, but we don't want our community leaning towards, drug and substance abuse, as we know this impacts our community greatly, and we just do not need any more loss of our loved ones that we are dealing with. This virus is enough. We have hurricanes ripping through our country, and then we just have people that's trying to take our country back. If you all don't know, I know today in Texas, the governor of Texas signed a bill to suppress voters' rights. They also passed a bill on abortion. A lot of things that our civil rights leaders and community and ancestors have fought for. There are states across this country that are doing things to rip away some of those rights. And as community, we have to rally together and stay resilient as this social justice movement continues. We can't just let the George Floyd and the Breonna Taylor stop the movement of collaborating and being in solidarity and moving this country forward. We have to continue to fight for the things and the injustices that are happening in our country all day, every day. And, I just want everybody to know we got to keep doing the work. I know this was the last holiday weekend. I hope everybody enjoyed themselves and had a safe holiday weekend. But this is the last summer holiday of the year. It is time to get to work and let's grind. We got a lot of issues that we need to tackle in our community. We got a lot of needs in our community. There are resources that are coming to our communities, and we need to make sure that we're doing the work, helping our people, because right now we are in some challenging times. And all of these resources, all of these businesses, we need to continue to support them, uplift them. And as the community organizations receive these resources to help our community, we have to make sure that they are doing their part to make sure that those that are in need get the resources and the support that's needed. I will be a part of that. I will make sure, I will definitely be holding people accountable because we have to do it right now. Our people are in a dire need of services and support, and we don't have time for people in the community taking advantage of people that are in need. It is so much support that is needed out there, and we have to do our part as community leaders and community organizations to make sure that the people are served, and we will do our part here at both sides of the conversation to make sure that that happens. But with that being said, going to jump into a couple of announcements, and then we're going to get started with tonight's show. Everybody knows September 14th, the recall election is happening. Please get out there, make sure that your vote count. This is a very, very important election for our state. No matter what side of the aisle you're on, please go out and vote and make sure that your voices is heard. That will be September 14th. The polls will close at 8 p.m. So make sure if you're mailing in your ballots, please make sure you mail them in. If you're going to the polling booths, please give yourself time to get there. Make sure that your voice is heard, no matter who you vote for or how you feel about it. We just want to make sure that you are part of the process and that your vote counts, as so many states right now are doing things to take away that power and that right of vote. So just very important stuff. Wanted to make sure community hears about that. With that being said, on September 12th, there's going to be another 3rd Street Humbre Block Party. This will be at the corner of Oakdale and the cross street is 3rd, between 3rd and Palouse at the Mendel Plaza. Please reach out to Erica at the San Francisco African American Cultural District if you have any questions. They are honoring our grandparents, the grandparents of the community, as well as parents of the community. This should be a great event. Please come out and enjoy. They're going to have food and drink, and definitely going to have some pop-up vendors and resources and information out for the community. If y'all missed the last block party that they had at Cafe Envy, it was a success. So many people had fun. I was on quarantine, so I wasn't able to be out there. Unfortunately, this event is happening on the day that we'll be live, so I'm going to miss this one, but I'll catch the next one. I'll be out there. But again, great event. Make sure that you get out there, and they're having a series of these events all throughout the city, and they're just moving them around to different parts of the community. And then on the 25th, they're going to go back to Cafe Envy, where they had so much success, to bring people out to enjoy and have a good time. So hopefully you all be able to get out to that. And then don't forget, in October 17th, they will be having the Phoenix Day Block Party. Go to sundaystreetssf.com block party if you want to be a part of that event. Unfortunately, all the vendor slots have closed. You will not be able to go in to be a vendor at that on that date, but you can go out and enjoy the festivities with the rest of the community. Very important event. And then with that being said, both sides of the conversation announcements, we are doing a number of things to help out as we move forward. We are getting close to kicking off some of our mentoring program that's going to be coming out for our 2nd cohort. Our team is working so hard to putting this program together, so we are getting close. We'll be putting more information out to the community as we get close to wrapping that up and start recruitment. So looking forward to that coming out to community very soon. This Thursday, we're going to have another educational presentation. We're going to have Cynthia and her team come on and talk about the importance of multiple streams of income. She's going to talk about how to get other business, get income coming in. As we all know, this COVID is impacting the jobs and the economy, and we want our people to be empowered, to be entrepreneurs, to find other ways to bring in money and support to themselves and for the community. So I think that's very important. And then this Sunday, we're going to have another community conversation. We're going to have part 2 of our disability conversation. Very, very important conversation that we're going to be having this Sunday. The first series, we had some powerful people from the community who talked about some of those issues. We are still reaching out to the city, getting that information, and then we having this part 2 to gather up some more information from some of the other community people who are dealing with some of the issues with their disability and services and resources, and just hearing some of those issues, so that once we get a compiled list of all the things that we could take to our city counts, that we make sure that we hold them accountable and make sure that we fix some of these issues that the people that have disabilities in our community are affected by. So if you're around this Sunday, that's going to be a great conversation. Come learn. I mean, the first conversation, we really educated a lot of community about some of the struggles that people with disability deal with. A lot of people reached out after that show. It was like, wow, I didn't know that. I'm glad you guys brought that up. I'm going to be conscious of it. And we're talking about the door openers. We know a lot of time we got coffee in our hand, we push the disable door openers, and a lot of time those are battery powered. And, we have to do our job if we're not in a wheelchair or need those services, not to use them, because when those batteries die, sometimes someone in a wheelchair will pull up and press it, and then they can't get the door open, and it is a challenge for them to get access to buildings. So we just want to put that out there. It'll be a great conversation. Hopefully you all will learn some information. It'll be very, very informative. And I think it's something that our community really needs to hear what's going on, because these are people that are part of our community, and we want to always have compassion and humility for those who have disabilities. So it's going to be a great conversation. With that being said, on 9/19, we're going to have part 2 of our community violence. We're going to be working with SF Block, Brother Majig over there, and some of the SF Block team, and we're going to reach out to some of our Dreamkeeper grantees who are doing some of this violence prevention in the community, and have them come on and let's have this conversation about community violence. What are the plans? What are we going to do? How do we come up with the solution to stop some of this community violence? And it's going to be a nice panel of people, so I'm looking forward to that conversation as well. And then the last Sunday of the month, we are talking voter suppression. This is real. Today, I just told you all, Texas signed a bill that supports voter suppression, but we're going to find out from some people what we could do as community to get involved, to make sure that this doesn't continue to happen, to impact our community. So with that being said, I'm going to land my plane now and close my mouth and get into tonight's segment. We have our guests that are up tonight. We might have one of our guests coming in late, but we have 2 phenomenal queens here that have some powerful stuff that they're doing and ways they're going to impact the community. My brother Nate just got kicked off, so when Nate come back, we'll pull him off. As you all know, the Wi-Fi services in our community are not the greatest, and we're hoping that through this infrastructure bill and some of the things that are coming to community, we'll be able to get these fiber optics and this Wi-Fi in our community fixed. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead, and when they come back, we'll bring them up, but we're going to go ahead and introduce tonight's guest. First, we're going to introduce Miss Raynelle Rino. She is coming up tonight as one of our hidden gems, and then we're going to bring up Kisai. I said it right, Kisai. These 2 phenomenal gems tonight. They are collaborating, working together, and they're doing some phenomenal things for community. So want to bring them up and let them introduce themselves to community, let community know what they're doing, how we can support them, and how we can get in contact with their services that sometimes in our community are much needed. So with that being said, ladies, go ahead and introduce yourself to community and let them know who you are and what you're doing.
Yay. Thank you so much. Thank you for having us and being here with y'all. It's super special. My name is Kisai, and I'm the founder of Community Unity. And Raynelle, do you want to go now?
Yeah, and my name is Raynelle Rino. I started my consulting, coaching and consulting firm in 2016. It's called Rino Consulting Solutions. After many years of doing nonprofit work, I kind of pivoted to being a business owner doing this work. And in our paths, Kisai and I crossed paths, being close in community, doing similar things, and over the years have developed a pretty amazing program. It's turned out to be our 3rd year doing Root to Bloom. So we wanted to spend some time talking about what the program is and what we're doing with it, and the changes that we've been seeing in community already.
Yeah. So with Community Unity, for folks who don't know, is basically an organization that focuses on community builders, workshops and retreats, and special events specifically for people who do community-based work. And that includes educators, social worker, therapists, coaches, after-school program folks, anybody that really works with people in their community to help individuals or groups out in many of the different ways that we do. And so when doing community unity, I got connected with Raynelle. And one of the big things I wanted to do was do more nature-based activities. So getting providers out in nature to do camping, hikes, retreats out in nature, backpacking trips, things like that. And Raynelle is known for her healing hikes. And so we connected and offered that. And that went really well and got a lot of positive feedback. And then we offered a workshop series and called Be the Healing. And then from that, one of the biggest things we learned, and also from feedback from participants, was we needed to go deeper. People wanted to go deeper in their healing work and connecting with each other on a deeper level, and not just doing the 1 or 3 day trainings where we just like start breaking the ice, right? To connect with each other a little bit. And then that's it. And you just kind of on your own. And so we worked together and developed the Root to Bloom training. And I think Raynelle and I will kind of chime in together, of course, because there's a lot of information and we do this as a partnership very intentionally. So Root to Bloom is basically a 7-month collective healing and transformational training. It is a professional development training, but we really are looking to the community as holistically, right? And that you're not just the title that you have or the job that you're doing in the community, but you're also a person living your life, and you have your own stuff, right? And I think one of the things we kind of started Root to Bloom with is that if we don't do our work, we don't take care of ourselves, we're not doing that constantly, that we're at risk of perpetuating harm in our communities, even though we're there to really help and spread love and joy. But really, it's hard to do that if you're not taking care of your stuff, your work. And so that's really what Root to Bloom is about. And so to do that, you also are learning actual skills and tools. Some of these things we already know, but putting it more in the context of, connecting to our individual past, our ancestral past, being disconnected from our ancestral lands, right? And really starting there, and then going a path forward into, okay, how do we apply this knowledge to ourselves, but then also to our communities and the young people or elders, adults, whatever age group or population you work with.
So one of the questions that I have, I want to jump in there before you go, Raynelle. So I see that you got, you talk about mobile space. What does that look like when you talk about mobile space? Because I think one of the things that I've been advocating heavily when we talk about mental health and wellness is bringing the services to the community. And I know we've talked about this before, is having some kind of like mobile unit or mobile vehicle that can pull up to the community and maybe have some like rooms in it and can do some mental health services right there on the scene. When you're talking about mobile space, is that the kind of mobile space, or are you just saying that we're mobile to bring to the different communities the services that you all provide?
So just to clarify, with community unity, the community builders I hold are mobile in the sense that historically, before COVID, we go to different neighborhoods and spots that we already kind of frequent, especially for Black and Brown folks, places that we feel comfortable at, they're already rooted in the community. And so in that sense, it was mobile. It was a different neighborhood and a different spot every month. And of course, when COVID hit, that pivoted to online. And now I'm doing a hybrid of both. And then with Root to Bloom, it's a hybrid program. So we do that online. And then once a month, we meet in person in the city at the Eco Center, actually over in Bayview. And so, so as far as mobile, it is about that idea of meeting people where they're at, and being somewhat accessible, but it's not literally like a mobile, van or truck or that kind of vibe. Not yet, at least.
So my question is, in doing this work, and you've kind of seen how the community comes together for that. Thinking about that mobile space, and like you said, you're not there yet. Me asking you from a community standpoint, is that something realistic that we should have for our community to give them access to service? Because I always say it, but I mean, you all who are doing the work with mental health, I'm not a mental health person, meaning I'm not a consultant or a physician or anything. I always like to get the insight because I'm always trying to bring those intersections together and try to, think from a community standpoint versus a provider standpoint or a service person. Does this make sense? Am I asking for something that's unrealistic, or do you all believe that that is something that could probably impact our community in a way that we can utilize those mobile services?
Yes, I think so. I think we need to do a little bit of everything. And it's still never going to be enough, I believe, too. I think whatever the community is asking for, we should do everything in our power to make happen. And I do believe having mobile services and different contexts, like a truck or a van, doing block parties, right? Which I know was happening a lot, especially during COVID. And house to house kind of things, home visits, all of that, I think is definitely relevant and necessary.
Okay, Ms. Raynelle, go ahead. I jumped in and cut you off, but go ahead. I know you had something to say.
I just wanted to go off of Kisai's share about that, but to answer your question too, John Henry, that this idea of mobile spaces too is a matter of like not only safety, feeling safe to access those resources if we're going to go directly into community, but also access needs. When it comes to mental health, there are some physical things and mental things that prevent us from accessing resources. So not only the physical presence, but the ability to connect and understand what the mental health situation is and where pathways of accessibility can be created from them, maybe even listening to how things happen for our community. And one of the things that, I was asked before in providing my services of healing hikes, and I pivoted those to virtual healing hikes, which sounds kind of weird. Like, how do you hike on Zoom? But you can do it in the process that I've developed, right? Somebody asked me, what's the most challenging thing about working, doing healing work in community. Mm-hmm. And a lot of what I feel like is, one of the most challenging things is to even think that you need healing.
Yes.
To even understand that there is a different way of being. Yes. So that kind of conversation too is something that we got to chip away at. Is like normalizing needing help, normalizing that there are different ways and strategies of navigating some of the most challenging things that we have in our community, and that there's support and resources out there. So I think the one thing that Root to Bloom provides that maybe, I don't know, we try to make it as transparent as we could, like when you read about the programming or you talk to somebody, but we try to emphasize that, it's really creating a space of healing as far as like what are the structures in place that create the environments that we're having to navigate. Mm-hmm. We have to be real about the historical lens on that impacting how we work and how we survive through like challenging situations at work. So coming from that background of me, myself being a direct service provider, I started in the Bayview with managing Heron's Head Park and bringing education programs there. So working with schools on that level, and then going on to working at YGC and Log Cabin Ranch. And so just understanding the prison to pipeline situation, and that me as a provider went through many things that my leadership couldn't provide, as far as needing to show up fully whenever I was teaching students, and that I would be experiencing certain things when I was on site with these. And nobody gave me those tools of how to really navigate, very violent situations. The organizations were always just like, call these other resources, go to the community meetings, which were really valuable and didn't allow me to apply a lot of things. And so coming together with Kisai and like really restructuring my life so that I wasn't in nonprofit anymore, but I was running a business that I knew like, well, I need to support service providers the way that I wanted to be supported doing this really, really hard work. We came together with Root to Bloom and blended that.
I think she froze up on it. You froze up on us a little bit.
Oh, am I back?
Yeah, I think. Okay, go ahead. I think we can hear you. You froze up a little bit, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So Root to Bloom, Kisai and I both sat there, and we were like, well, we've had this experience. We know, and we're even in situations where we're still providing services. So if we were to craft something that was really for the community and accessibility in the best way that we could at that time, we said, okay, we got to like take the different levels of who we are, which includes our roots. Like our roots are important. Understanding who we are and where we come from. Actually, as a coach, as a professional coach, when I work with leaders, it's a lot of the things that happened when you were a kid, the traumas that are now showing up as a professional now.
Yeah.
So those are the professional development skills that I chose as like, okay, as a coach, I'm getting all this training on like how to move leaders into more of their power and, be more comfortable with their voices and advocating for what's right. So there's not only just like, okay, where you come from, who you are in your family and your identity, to like, oh, these things that can support you to actually heal some of those traumas while you're working, to actually supporting each of these providers and saying like, well, look, what's your true path? Who are you really? And that's the sort of like blooming piece that we do towards the end of the program, because we really have to cultivate that understanding of like who you are as a person, and understand the full capacity that you could be for a community. So that design was really about like disrupting this normal model of like training so that you get a skill and then you're out there, like you got to figure out how to apply it.
Mm-hmm.
Like for us, it's like, well, no, we could talk about these concepts, but we want you to start practicing them now and meet with us every month to talk about how they're working out for you. And like not only learn it, but apply it like right now. Because we got to see how the change happens within each person. So and I think Kisai and I speak to that. And I started a lot of my work as a consultant, a coach and consultant, because I went back and I was doing these healing hikes where I was targeting service providers because of vicarious trauma or secondary trauma that we carry. And these are the parts, like if we don't process through those things, we're at risk for bringing those traumas out to the people that we serve because we haven't dealt with it. Or, what I do in nature is like some of that energy that we take on from, the stories we might hear when we're providing services. If we don't release that, then it bubbles up and it becomes like a huge explosion, or manifests in some different way. So nature is a place where you could actually move that energy and move that stuff out of your body. And so we kind of like practice some of those healing type of practices. Kisai will bring in some of those exercises, not only that involve nature, but other ways that from the experience of being a provider can help you kind of like process through the day or like question and empower yourself with who you are so that you could show up fully when you're working.
Wow.
Man,
Yeah,
phenomenal stuff. Nate, did you want to
powerful.
say something, Nate? Jump in there.
Yeah. That's powerful, man. I bought a mindfulness coach and a yoga instructor with us on the road this season with my high school teams,
Wow.
and
Oh,
I can't stress how important that is. And by day 8 or 9, they were hunting the instructors down to get down and get their minds right and stuff. So, in saying all that, I deal with a lot of kids from
Oh, I think you froze up, Nate.
backgrounds. But saying all that, can you guys talk to you? How I know you guys express how. Hello, now you give me.
Yeah, I
You
can
see me now?
I can hear you now.
Hello. All right.
We can hear you now.
No, because the very important thing I wanted to know how how is it received to your younger population? I mean, how do you keep that cool factor in there for them? As you know, they want some cool things in there, but my dog is running over me now. But how do we keep that cool factor and keeping our kids, our young people, especially our people of color, engaged, and letting them know it's okay to seek some therapy or seeking someone to talk to or have that space. Sorry.
You,
thank.
you want to take that?
Yeah, or we both can. I'm sure we have different ways to respond to that. Thanks, Nate. I think, well, one, just to say for both what I do at Community Unity, what Raynelle does, and what we do in the training is more focused on folks like you, right, Nate, that actually are doing the work, providing the services to, it could be young people, whatever the population is. So we don't provide these services directly to young people. But as someone that does work with young people, I can say one of the things that is really effective is one, as a provider, you're role modeling what it is that you're trying to get them to do. So if you're, for example, going to have them learn yoga or meditation or whatever it may be, but you're not doing any of that, right? That's going to be challenging for them, right? To really trust you and follow that. Now, you could be doing it for the first time with them, yes. But if you're trying to tell them to do something that you ain't willing to do, like it's not going to work, right? The other thing is that there is young people that do, and an example that you're giving, that do practice yoga or meditation. And so getting them to speak to the other young people, right, about what their experience was or is, and kind of normalizing it that way. Because of course they need us as adults, but they only really care about what other young people say. So having other young people that have that experience to speak on it, for sure.
Yeah. And the other thing I would want to say, just to like shout out some of our alums of Root to Bloom, the alums that have done our program are providing direct services to our young people. So, like check out the testimonials on our site, and you could reach out to. I saw like Leela was on here following us. What's up, Leela? She's working
directly. Got us on here. Yes,
an alum,
Dance Academy.
And so there's more insight there because there's direct service from them. As me, as a mother, I have an 11-year-old, and when it comes to mental health, or getting them interested in even talking about their wellness, I feel like it's about normalizing emotions and letting them know it's okay to feel certain things. We're often told like not to cry, or not to feel things, but really what we need to begin with, and this doesn't even just stay with young kids, there's a lot of adults who are disconnected from their emotions, and they're disconnected from their body and somatic knowledge of like what happens when a challenging feeling comes up. So, and again, to also echo what Kisai is saying, if you yourself have not tuned into your emotions or normalized like talking about emotions, it's going to be hard to teach that to somebody else, or even recognize when the need is there to start talking about emotions.
Wow, very, very powerful stuff. I got a couple questions, but one, I just want to know the services that you provide. Is it male and female, or is it just female? And what's the age range? And what does that look like? Do y'all have cohorts? Is it 16 weeks, 8 weeks? What does that program look like?
Yeah, so mostly for Root to Bloom, it's a 7-month program. Each month we meet, a hybrid of mostly it's Zoom, and then we meet in person at the end of the month if it works out for the schedule. And we're meeting at the Eco Center in the Bayview. We've developed a partnership with SF Rec and Park to utilize that space. And we also have sponsorships from our sponsors to provide for some of the providers who can't front the whole cost of the training. So mostly who is attracted to Root to Bloom, I would have to say, are women of color, which we would like to diversify that a lot. But again, it's hard to kind of normalize the need for healing in male interest. And so we are looking to try and get more males involved in our programming, or maybe even like non-gender conforming, which we have had already, but just increasing the diversity of providers that are attending our trainings is the aim. And really it's service providers. So it's almost like a train the trainer, because what we're doing is really supporting professionals who are boots on the grounds, needing a community to process through, while they also learn skills and content around why things are happening the way that they're happening. Because there is a structure behind all of this, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I think that's very important. I only asked that question because, listening to Nate talk about his young basketball players as they're being introduced to these new things that sometimes we just don't think about as young men, to then tap into it and actually like it, right? To help our community. And that's one of the reasons why I asked that question, because in our community, especially the Black and brown community, there's not a lot of services for males, right? And there's not enough programming to encourage males to get involved. We had another sister who came on here that does yoga and ganja and some other stuff. And I was asking her, I always wanted to do yoga, but sometimes it's uncomfortable to be a man in a yoga class with all women, right? So she's like, well, you could come out. But I'm like, how do we get some of these services that we can actually help impact our young males in the community? Because, in this work, when we talk about violence and community activism and doing this movement work with our young people, what I find is the women of the community have a lot of services and they have ways to kind of relieve and get some of their stuff off their chest. But when we deal with the males of the community, especially our young Black males, it's not a lot of resources to help them get off some of that stuff that they're dealing with. Sometimes it's fatherhood, a lack of a father. Sometimes it's community violence, losing a good friend to gun violence, or just dealing with the day-to-day community stuff, right? And they just hold all of this stuff in and they don't have a way to really get it off their chest. And I think, organizations like you all and some of the stuff that we need to do in the community is I like these ideals, because also it gives them that sense of like tapping into the nature, right? And sometimes in San Francisco, especially, our kids get, stuck to their corners that they stand on, this concrete slab all day. And we don't get to enjoy the beauties of our city. There's a lot of ocean front. There's a lot of mountains. There's a lot of areas that you could go out to just kind of explore and do different things. And those are some of the things that we definitely need to start thinking about. How do we shift that mindset and bring it to our community and get some of these young people off the corners, off where they're hanging at, and show them something different? Because I just think, like what Nate said, sometimes, especially with young men, they might run into something. They like, I don't want to do this. This ain't for me. This is corny. But once they do it and actually find the benefit of it, I think that's, shifting that narrative and that paradigm of the community. I just think that's very important. It's something that we really got to do. And I'm always thinking of ideals of how do we advocate that, and how do we bring that to the young males of our community? Because so many times they don't get to the front for it, the forefront of the services or the information. And I really want to see a change in that, because I think some of these activities and some of these strategies that you all use that are in place. I think if it got into our community hands with some of our young people, we could definitely curb some of this violence in our community.
Yeah, for sure. And I think one of the ways that I think about it is, if we were to really make that effort to invite more males in, and we do, I would strategize to say, well, I need a male facilitator. Because they're not going to come and like get facilitated by me. That's not safety. That's not resonance. So the more that we could find leaders that are at a place or maybe even interested to be mentored through holding spaces like this, going through programs for themselves to do the healing, start their path, then, we can chip away at them being the leaders of programs like this eventually. It takes time, though. Relationship building is such an important component of working with community, right? Being present and showing up and, feeling safe within it.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest problem that we have. Not enough people showing up, not enough people being consistent, and not enough accountability on a lot of these community organizations. But we have a question in there. Then they're asking, have you all ever been to elementary schools to try to speak with the young kids about mental health? I think that's an important question because I think the way we start shifting this paradigm and when we talk about what it looks like for mental health is we have to start young. We have to make mental health cool at a young age when our young kids, from elementary, kindergarten on up, when they're starting to express their feelings. I have a 5-year-old granddaughter and she's always expressing her feelings and going through these emotional changes, right? And I'm always trying to figure out how do I, one, help with that energy, but also say that it's okay to have those emotions, but also have the discernment to say, hey, certain behaviors you can't do, but also move her into the right direction. But it's a lot of work. But I think this is a great question, because I believe that we have to get it into our schools. We have to make this mental health thing cool. We need all of our leaders, influencers, all the way to our churches, because so many times in our community, mental health is always taboo, stigma to it, and even in our religious realms, it's, oh, if you have mental health, you have the devil in you and things like that. And I think we have to figure out how do we break those stigmas and really put the services forefront to really impact our community, kind of push it a little bit forward. So what do you all think about the elementary stuff?
Yeah, well, again, for us specifically, how we would impact young people in elementary school age is with the educators, which the teachers that are working in the classroom, the administrators, other school site support, like the social workers, even the security guards, whoever's kind of working within the schools to have them engage in this training Root to Bloom and or any of the other offerings that we have. And that's how we would kind of disseminate this mental health, healing, joy, relationship building, and all of that we kind of do through them, through the adults that work with the young people.
That's very, very important. I'm definitely going to get you all information over to our Black Alliance of Parents. Because I think they're doing some assessment right now with our young people coming back to school and seeing some of where their mental health is. And maybe you all can be a provider of the San Francisco Unified School District.
John.
Yeah,
great. Yeah.
Something like that. So I think that's very, very important stuff. So, getting our educators and our principals and our counselors in that mindset of how do we lead these type of facilitate these type of programming. But yeah, that's very, very deep. I think we have to look at all kind of ways, especially right now with COVID. The kids have lost that social engagement piece of just life, coming back into the school, having to wear a mask, dealing with the family deaths and loss of loved ones. It's a lot for our young people. I mean, me as an adult, the number of people I've lost and been impacted through COVID and just, having to quarantine and having to be disrupted and your normal program being interrupted. It's a lot. So I can imagine what our young people are feeling.
Yeah. And to also go off of Kisai's speaking about providing services to the educators. You know, the young people, the elementary school kids are looking for our guidance, and they're in the institutions that are being held, and decisions that are being made by educators and administrators. And so in order for that, actually, if you're going to teach emotional wellness as one teacher in the school, that whole ecosystem is not being affected, because it's just that one class. And then that kid is going to not have the rest of the ecosystem, maybe at home or in other classes, to support some of that learning. So we want to go to the institutional level and get buy-in and understanding from the people who are actually making the decisions for the children, that mental wellness is an important thing to implement in the day. So, you know, this is also something that we're trying to empower our providers that were in our program, is that your voice also matters. If you're transforming yourself through Root to Bloom, you got to let your supervisor know. You got to let the decision makers. And this is why we always ask, don't spend your own money first unless you ask them first to buy into the professional development course that we're offering, because it is the thing that we are struggling with, as far as, you know, convincing that it's a professional development program, is because neither Kisai or I have published books, right? We don't have things that are like institutionalized as far as our process. We're just doing it because that's how it, like, for us, by us model, right? That's how we experience it, and that's what we want to give. So we always have to have that extra conversation, because your supervisor managers aren't going to be like, wow, this $1,000 thing, and their well-known PhD written book kind of, that's not who we are. But we know that we have made such important transformations in each of these providers that we're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Maybe one day we'll write a book, right, Kisai? I don't know.
Yes.
Hey, if you guys write the book, I'll buy it. I like that motto. You know, so many times in our community, we get hooked on titles and people having PhDs. And this is where I wanted to go, and I'm gonna let you guys go because y'all been so gracefully hanging on. But when we're talking about data, and I think sometimes as I'm navigating and doing these assessments, and I think we get so caught on data driven that we're really losing the impact, right? And I think sometimes these people who have the PhDs and all of the letters behind their names, it looks good. It says they're smart, they know what they're doing, but sometimes it don't have the impact, you know. And I have to be real, and I always tell people I'm more about the authenticness of anything. Like, be real, because sometimes we lose our people and our culture and our communities by sometimes this professional mindset, right? And I think sometimes we have to bring it down to our people to really uplift them. Not saying that they can't do great work and it's not real, but how do we do this model like you're talking about, right? Like, we just lived experience. We just gonna put it together, talk how we talk, congregate, and we have the conversations and make an impact. And I think this is like the both sides of the conversation model, right? Because we believe that through communication, the healing begins, right? And it's not all corporate, right? It's just real. People lived experience, not saying that it's right, not saying that it's wrong, hearing different perspectives. And sometimes you need that educated perspective to also put in the real life day-to-day perspective to help get people to get out of that part that might hold them up. But I think that's a great model that you all have. And definitely, if you guys write a book, I would love to be a supporter and buy that book, because I like ideals like that. I think sometimes we get so caught on people, their pedigrees and their degrees, and they're not really impacting the community, you know. And a lot of times, you know, those service providers that don't have those degrees have the better impact in the community, right? So how do we empower them? How do we enrich them? You know, maybe they don't have all of that, the business model of it, but they have the impact and the outreach of the community. So I think that's what we need to focus on. And, you know, like you said, I heard you say earlier about these models, man. Some of these models and data, you know, the more I assess this stuff, and it's like, is it really about the data? Because I'm starting to see how people can manipulate the data to make it look good, like we're getting the results. But we're looking on the news, we're looking in our community, and our people are still suffering. So at the end of the day, I don't care what the data say. I'm looking at the day-to-day impact of my community. When I'm driving through my community, when I'm talking to the young people in my community, when I'm talking to the people on the community corners, I don't see the impact.
Yeah.
But these people who are supposed to do the work and the services, their numbers look great.
Yeah.
So how do we change those models and still be effective? And that's what I'm trying to figure out, because I think we get so crushed, especially when it comes to granting and things of that nature. Everything is so based on the data. And I'm like, you could manipulate the data to make it look good. But then when I go through my neighborhood, I don't think that data is realistic to what's going on in the community. So very important stuff. But go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, part of it is placing value, right, on the real, right, like what we're actually doing, what we already know is innate to us, right, like already just regardless of what neighborhoods we grew up in and the communities that we come from and represent, but being able to place value on that. And it's not just placing value on someone who has a degree or someone who has experienced higher education. So that's what it's about. And spaces like this, right, to have the conversations is helping place value on that, right? So that it's not one, we're one-upping each other type of thing. Yeah. And also people who do get their master's or PhD or self-publish or get published or any of these kind of different ways to get information out, that we need more of us, right, that come from the communities that we're working in to be able to do that and then go back to the communities, right, or be able to be in those, elite, professional, funding, philanthropy, all those spaces, to be able to bring in those spaces the value of grassroots, boots on the ground folks, right? And so it's kind of a mix of that happening, needs to happen, and super, super important. And I think one of the values that we have, I think Raynelle and I both, is we have done this work, right? We and we didn't speak about our personal stories, but we know what it's like living in the communities that most of the people that we're serving in our training program have went through, but also are still working in, and so and I still work in the community. Raynelle is still working with adults in the community too. So that helps us really bring that raw kind of information and that data, right? The like anecdotal data of stories and people's truth, right, into the space as well.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to really emphasize is, Kisai and I consciously, I'm going to speak for myself. I consciously do not want to be a nonprofit. I think that being a business owner is a true practice of self-determination, because I have to understand what my value is in order to survive, and run a business. And the dollars are coming from the actual participants, not donors or charitable foundations or government grants. I think it's important to get data and information, but I would say as a business owner, maybe I should partner with Department of Public Health, because they can staff the data collection for me that will get me policy change for mental health in schools. But I'm going to stick to being a business owner, because that is a practice that I have experienced that really puts us in a place like, and this is what we also talk about to our participants who are struggling with, like, I just don't think I could afford it, or like are struggling with like paying out of pocket or the actual price. It's like, it's an investment in yourself. You're going to be investing in your own growth, which is going to be priceless at the end of the day. You're going to learn the skills that you can navigate and kind of shift the energy in your world. And I found that, like, as a business owner, I have more autonomy to do that than if we were to be like a nonprofit trying to cultivate relationships with people who have money to give, right? And we're really telling people this is what it feels like to say yes to yourself. And the money that you worked for, invest it back into yourself. And so I consciously choose, I'm not going to be a nonprofit. I will be a for-profit business. And entrepreneurship has really challenged me to look at that for myself and work on my own self-value. So that's why we also started a sponsorship program for Root to Bloom. You're asking, how can you support this work? Because we're not a nonprofit, we can't get donations, but we can get sponsorships. And if you are somebody who wants to sponsor either like a seat for a provider or even sponsor the program in general, I do want to grow this training program that we have so that we have more staff to do the administrative pieces. We have other people that we can train so that it's not only Kisai and I doing the training, but other people are like teaching it. So we would love, on the program page, the Be Radical by Nature /RTB3 season 3, the sponsorship packet is on there. And if people are interested in sponsoring us and growing this work, they can figure out there's information there on how to sponsor us.
Man, very powerful stuff. I'm glad you said that. That gave me a different perspective of nonprofits. But I do know that there are struggles when we're talking about, because I was going to ask you to, how was it to collaborate and work with each other when we find in the nonprofit world there's so much competition and it's not enough collaboration, right? Yeah. And, it brings this divide of services to our community where we actually do a disservice to the community. And I'm always trying to figure out how do we empower people, because I think both models could work, nonprofit world and for-profit world can work. I think it's how we structure it and how do we really implement, that accountability to make sure that we are collectively working together. And it is a struggle. And I'm always frustrated by that. I can't say the word frustrated. I'm sorry, because Dr. Henriquez told me I can't say frustrated. But again, there is a lot of those issues that impact the leadership and the organizations of our community. How do we better organize and work with each other? And it's really showing out, right? When things start happening and as the funds and the allocations start coming to the community, you start watching and you start seeing the real issues of the community and why we can't provide great services and why we can't accomplish some of the goals that we want to accomplish in the community. And, that's a great perspective that you put. I mean, I really like that. That made me think about it. But I'm always thinking of how do we fix what we have, because I believe things that are broken can be fixed. That's just the mechanical side of me. I believe there's a way, and I haven't really got to the bottom of it. I know it starts with accountability. There's a lot of assessment that needs to happen. And again, what I've found, and I know for profit, when you have your own business, you always open to ideals because you're always trying to grow and expand. And I think sometimes in the nonprofit world, people become comfortable. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And they're afraid to open up and be innovative and be creative. Right. It just becomes the numbers game. Right. And I think that's where that data-driven number game starts to impact the work and the services that are provided to our community. And it does a disservice to everybody. But we got to figure out a way to break those models and make it work. But again, people are afraid to change because when it's something that's not comfortable, it's hard to buy in. You know what I mean? If you're used to doing business a certain way, it's hard to change that model. And that's why sometimes businesses fail or sometimes those businesses grow. But again, there's always a shift in that paradigm. So phenomenal stuff. You all been holding on very long. The only two guests tonight. I don't want to hold you all up any longer tonight. Nate fell off. I wanted to let him ask his final question, but you answered a lot of those questions. And tonight, I'm definitely going to take some notes and really sit down and think about, this work because we are a part of this Dreamkeeper initiative. There are a number of organizations that are part of the Dreamkeeper initiative. And I'm always thinking of ways, how do we be better, right? And how do we really impact our community? Because, again, too many people are talking about mental health. Everybody's saying the problem is mental health, but we can't get the proper people and the services to the people. People are always talking about education, but we don't have the tools and the bandwidth to get these young people in that realm to get educated. And I think it's going to take both sides. It's going to take the productive for-profit business as well as the nonprofit business. And maybe you all as a profit business could use your model for that sponsorship to a nonprofit that can do the work and do some impact. I think we have to look at it from all around. It's a community need. You are doing a phenomenal job, and I love that collaboration with how you are doing it. And maybe this model is the model that we need to see, because too many times in our community, we just get to the instant gratification. Everybody wants to hold on to their own, and it's like, how do we work together? Because I'm always looking at it, and it's like, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just have to work together, right? Yes. If you got a program over here, how do we come together and make an outstanding program? It does no good if you serve 100 people, I serve 100 people, and we just talking about our 100 people, But how do we come together? Maybe we can impact 500 or 1,000 people from working strategically, right? So very, very important stuff, very powerful. Just blessed and honored to have you all here. And I want to thank Feline Dance Group and Coach Leela. She is a wonderful connector in the community. She is always connecting to people, making sure that we get the right people who are talking and advocating for our community. There is a need. And just shout out for all the things that you all are doing at the Eco Center. I was just out there this weekend, just looking at our young people, cleaning the community, doing some of the great work. And I think this is the start of how we change that paradigm and change that narrative. We have to impact our young people. We were out feeding the homeless this weekend. A lot of our young people out in the community. And I think that part of that compassion and humility starts young. If we instill it in them early, to give back, to support community, uplift community, keep it clean, I think we start changing that corner, and it's just phenomenal stuff. So thank you all for the work that you all doing. Definitely, I would like to connect with you all and figure out how can we do something to really impact our community, especially in these times that we are in right now. There are so many people in our community that are being impacted. Not just with the Delta virus, just the things that are impacting us. And we have to find a way to get resources to the community, get them out in nature, try something different so that we can really change what's happening in our community. So thank you all for coming on. If there's any last words that you all want to give to the community, any shout outs to anybody, this is your time. You all were hitting gyms tonight. You are not so hidden now. Both sides of the community is going to be looking for the bloom and looking for the tune and trying to connect with you all. So if there's anything lastly that you all want to say before we close out tonight's segment, please go ahead and do it right now.
I just want to give gratitude and thanks to you, both sides of the conversation, and all of our Root to Bloom alum. We got 2 seasons and we're starting our next one. They are so, oh my gosh, like they heal me. Every single one, every story that they have had, and their presence has just healed a lot of the parts of me that I've needed to sustain myself throughout. So just want to shout them out.
Yes, I ditto that 100 million times for sure. And I think just being on this platform and even just hearing the announcements in the beginning and checking out some of the previous conversations or offerings that you all have had, I think this is what it's about, right? Is being able to help uplift each other and empower each other and be in community together, be able to break bread. I think it's a huge value of mine, and I love being able to do this. So thank you so much for giving us a platform to speak our truth and our story about what we offer to the hope dealers in the Bay.
I love it. Hope dealers. If you're looking for somebody that's dealing something, we're dealing hope over here. That's a good one. But definitely, we would love to connect with you all. Again, if you all have anyone in your network, because I think mental health needs to be also educated to our community, right? Because in our community, we talk about healing, we talk about doing the work, but we really don't explain what does that work look like. Because I always ask people, what does that look like? Because I hear it all the time. Well, I'm healed. I'm doing the healing work. I'm doing myself work. But then we're not really educating the community. What looks like? So definitely we would like to invite you or any of your connections to come on and do a PowerPoint presentation on one of our educational Thursdays. I think that's a good way to just kind of break it down step by step, going through a PowerPoint and say, this is what this look like. This is that inner peace. This is that moment of peace and tranquility or whatever it is I just think that is something that's important. And then we'll definitely keep you all in our contact list as we will continue to have those mental health conversations. We are doing some things, hopefully in the future, with Rafiki Coalition and some of the other mental health organizations to really have some intentional conversations. And again, I'm going to reach out to you all when we have our mental health. We did it all during Mental Health Month in May and June, but we're going to continue these mental health conversations, especially in these times that we are dealing with this COVID, this drug overdose and this drug abuse in our community, the violence in our community. We need to find ways to talk mental health and educate the people and have these conversations. And I think it's very important to have you all on here because our community needs to see that sense of vulnerability. And I think as more of us be vulnerable, talk about our life experience, talk about our testimonies, and I think we'll start getting people to open up and really deal with some of the pain and some of the grief and things that they're holding in and dealing with. So very, very important stuff. So thank you all again. Looking forward to connecting with you soon, and just beautiful work. Anything that we could do to help support you all, please reach out to us. If you have a digital flyer or an event that you're going to, please reach out to us. We'll blast it on our social media network so that we can get people to come to your events. If y'all have something that you want to get community involved, since we have a lot of connections with community, a lot of people utilize our platform to help get information out to the community for the community events. Please let us know if you have something going on, and we'll get it out to the community so we can get some of the community families to participate in some of the activities that you all are performing for community. I think that's phenomenal stuff. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in tonight, this Thursday. Do not forget to tune in this Thursday at 6 p.m. We're going to have Cynthia and her crew come on, and they're going to be talking about multiple streams of income. Very educational, important information in these times. Y'all seen the job numbers come out. You see what's going on with COVID. There's a possibility that we might be closing some stuff down. Think about other ways to make income, as a lot of these jobs will be impacted again. A lot of restaurants are closing down. A lot of businesses are backing up. So please join us this Thursday as you're going to learn some information about multiple streams of income. And then this Sunday, please tune in. Another important conversation about disability, some of the issues, some of the concerns, some of the people that live and walk and communicate and dwell in our community that are being impacted by some of the things that impact them. I think it's an important conversation that community needs to be a part of, so we can hear the struggles. We can hear some of the difficulties that people in our community are dealing with disabilities, so that we can be mindful, so that we can be educated, and we can also advocate for them and make sure that they get the services and things that they need to navigate, because we got it easy. We can walk upstairs and do certain things that sometimes other people in our community are not able to, and we want to make sure that we also are advocating for them to make sure that they have the experience of a lifetime that we have, and they can get the things done needed. And then next Tuesday, we'll have another Hidden Gem segment where we will continue on this platform to highlight our Black and brown businesses, as well as those positive community leaders that are doing things to impact our community, like these two phenomenal hidden gems here tonight, so graciously blessing our community with information and mental health wellness. So with that being said, thank you all for tuning in. Be safe out there. We'll see you all this Thursday for our next live show. Much love, be safe, and we'll be back on Thursday. Have a blessed evening, everybody.